All right, we're going live and making everything work here. It looks like it's working pretty good. I've got a lot of comments on here already that are pretty long. Um, okay, let's see. Are these the videos for the current set? I've been working with my assistant, who unfortunately is in Boulder, and I'm here. And my assistant, I've asked to remove all of the out-of-date training videos. Now, if somehow some of the current training videos got removed, we'll get them back up. She isn't actually deleting them. She's setting them to be private. And so if we need to bring it back for any reason, it's just a click of a button to make happen. And I'm going to turn that fan on just a little bit there. It's 73 degrees in here, so it must be ham radio time. Let's see what we've got here. I'm looking. David Larson is taking his ham test next Friday. Good for you. And very excited for you. Abraham used my videos. Kevin Lehigh got by learning the answers to the questions. Yeah, I know that's one of two approaches to doing it. I prefer that we learn a little bit about the subject. Some people like learning one way and other people like learning another. It kind of comes down to whether the goal is to get the license or the goal is to become a licensed who's prepared to be a ham. And I think personally that the questions that are in the set, all three sets, are not the kinds of questions that really elicit you to have some or develop some or get some understanding of what's happening. It says a number of Dave's general videos have gone private. Okay, you should be able to go to, and I'm going to put this up on the screen here, and I'm going to make this big, and I'm going to go over to dcasler.com. Okay, and now I'm going to make this bigger. There we go. Okay, so now that should cover most everybody's screen. All right, we're going to go down here for amateur radio licensing guides. For general, for example, here. Okay, the general videos should all be the 9th edition. Okay, this is the book from 2019 through 2023. So let's pick one and see if we actually get the video. Yep, we do. Okay, I think, what I'm afraid has happened is that people have, what would you call it? Okay, let me put this back here so I can see. People have links to the outdated videos, and that is becoming a problem. And I had this plaintive plea from a guy and his wife who were desperate, wondering when I was going to update the general videos. And I wrote back and said the general videos have been updated for quite some time. I didn't have the heart to tell them it's been over a year. But I did... I asked my assistant to please take them down. What I would really like is for YouTube to have some way I can put a notice there that says, this video is obsolete, click here to go to the correct one. But they don't have that capability, and it's a royal pain. They used to have a capability that was similar to that, but they took it down. They don't have it anymore. Okay, so check out. Now, if any of the 9th edition videos go private, let me know. Write to me at directly at dcasler.com, at casler28@gmail.com. That's my business address, and I will forward those over to my assistant to get fixed. That's why I asked her to set them private, so that they don't disappear. Because if they disappear, then we've got to re-upload them. And with the general videos, there isn't an issue. Since I've got a set of, I've got one folder with all the tech, another with the general, another with the extra, so that I can make the video sticks. So I've got all the videos there, and we can re-upload them if we have to. But I'd really rather not do that. So make sure that you go to dcasler.com is fine. Just go to dcasler.com, and in the right-hand column, click on Tech, General, or Extra Videos, and it will take you to the page that lists them all. There's a complete list, and they're all current, and you click on the video with that section of the book, and it will take you to that video. If any of those have been privatized, please let me know immediately so I can fix that. That is something that is extremely easy to fix. All I have to do is go into Studio, click on that video, click on Make It Public, and poof, it's all fixed up. So that makes it very easy. And I'm really sorry if we do that. Okay. So Ranger, I hope you're working off an obsolete list. If you're working off the current list, let me know. We'll get that fixed immediately. Okay. Man, there are a lot of comments here. Okay. The whole experience of learning about hams, I started watching Dave's video a year ago. My understanding of, this is from Kevin. Where does he continue that? Improved tenfold. Oh, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words. Yeah, the ones were set private just so that people don't try and learn the new test from the old videos. There aren't that many differences, okay? Now, the American Radio Relay League, in its infinite wisdom, has, on occasion, renumbered the chapters in the book and taken material from one chapter and split it and put half over here and half over here. So that presented quite a bit of a challenge for making the right video for it. But I've gone through all of that, so they're all set. And we will keep them current, okay? Okay, no, they're not deleted. Yeah, if we have to bring one up, we can do that. Lots of people say hi. Hi, Brad Rich. Brad Rich is a friend, an Augie, and a patron, and is the one who helped me put up the big IR antenna, and has also offered to help me sort through getting the DX Commander on the air. The DX Commander right now, that project is frozen. And by frozen, I mean literally frozen. It's out in the ice out here. Most of the antenna is exposed now. I tried pulling on it, and several of the wires are stuck in what is now ice. Used to be snowdrifts. It's now ice. And they're not moving. I'd have to go in there with a hammer or something and break that ice up to get that thing out. So it's on ice. We'll get to that. We've had some very nice weather, although I've heard that it's going to get snowy. Although they've been crying wolf so much on the snow coming that I think that every day we're supposed to wake up to 6 feet of snow. It's going to be sunny and 70 outside. But anyway, yeah, yeah. If you do get your license by just learning the questions, and you could certainly do that. It's very easy to do. Some people are very good at doing that. And the thing is, you have to recognize that it's a beginning, not an end. That passing that test is not a goal. It's a yard line. okay, a yard line, it's a first down, but it's not a touchdown. A touchdown is where you get comfortable on the air. Bill says hi from Sacramento. Many of the current set of general for 9th edition have gone private. Okay, Ranger, I will take care of that. Good evening from Mississippi, from Harry, far west Missouri. Let's see, solar power for camping. Would like to use my FT891. It takes 20 amps. What size battery is recommended and or solar panel? Actually, the solar panel doesn't need to be remarkably big. It can be 30 or 40 watts if it's in the sun all day and it's charging the battery all day. And your battery ought to be 100 amp hours. Or, go down to Walmart and get one of their marine batteries. They're about 80 amp hours. You do need a controller, a charge controller. Now, when you get more into it, you can go with batteries that are specifically designed for solar, or go with lithium, or add more to it, or run more off of your system, or whatever. What I have right now, which is way oversized, is a 250 watt 24 volt panel, which is the equivalent of a 125 watt 12 volt panel, and charging 12 volt batteries, which are just right over there. And it works really well for me. So now I don't run the reference rig on solar, because that's not what's in the reference station. The reference station is a power supply. So I use the power supply. The reference station I put together, that's actually what I use. Okay? I actually use the reference station. Okay. Looking great. Well, I'll share it with you because there's no reason not to. I was recently diagnosed as being diabetic, and so now it's all the fun and games of learning the new diet. I don't have to take insulin. I take metformin, which is a pill. And it's just, getting used to the change in diet and stuff like that. It's not going to slow me down. And I'm not going to stop flying. I'm not going to stop doing videos. And I'm not going to stop being a ham just because there's this life change. I mean, it happens to everybody. Okay. Let's see, Bill Mungavan said that he runs a Yaesu FT857D as his go kit for parks in the air, and has run his battery as many as 7 hours without killing it. It had plenty of power left over. The thing is, the rig takes 20 amps, but only on voice peaks. On receive, it takes an amp, maybe 2 if it's computerized. Okay. And then when you're transmitting, you're using a little bit more in peaking at 20 amps. You're not using 20 amps all the time. You're using, on average, maybe 3 or 4 amps because, you're receiving a lot of the time. Then you talk for a while, then you receive for a long time. So you're not using that much. Hello from southeast Wisconsin. Hope I am well. I am doing good. Getting 4 element 6 meter beam and erecting 32 feet of military mast. Any thoughts on 6 meter propagation? A 6 meter is called the magic band. When it is open, it is open, but it's a little unpredictable. It's not really F layer propagation, but more sporadic E. That does it. It's one of these bands that's in between HF and VHF and has some characteristics of both. I would think that getting a 4 element 6 meter beam will not work on 32 feet of military mast. You're going to need a tower for that, because what the problem is the bending moment. As you rotate it and stop it, the mast, you're trying to rotate that mast and it's going all the way to the ground, and you could have real problems with that pulling guys out and stuff like that. You almost need like at least some Roan 25 tower or something like that. Bioenno has a package deal with 20 amp hour battery, 120 watt solar panel for about $449 with a charge controller. This is what I got, and it works great, and I imagine that it would. That's, I don't know, not double maybe, but 50% more than you would pay for the equivalent lead acid. But those really nice things about the Bioenno batteries, the lithium iron phosphate batteries, is that they actually run about 13.1 volts instead of the 12.5 or 6 of the lead acid, and rigs like that. Okay. Will the Harbor Freight solar kit work to start? I don't know. I haven't looked at what they've got. I guess I'll have to look at what they got. Harbor Freight, I would imagine it won't have a maximum power point tracker. It'll have something simpler. 120 watt panel keeps the battery good for hours. Oh, good grief, you could run a lighting off that battery too, and you'll be fine. I'm looking into a 40 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery as a backup. Yes, it would work. Now, when you add the solar cell, add the charge controller. And make sure that the charge controller is for lithium ion. Bioenno will sell you the correct charge controller. DK5ONV, Uncle Gunther is waving a hand from Southwest Germany. Hello. Metformin is cheap, effective, and has some great anti-inflammatory collateral benefits. Good. How do we know what a homebrew THHN 12-gauge stranded wire antenna's max power rating might be? How about full power, 1500 watts? You can put the full legal limit into that 12-gauge dipole. The full legal limit. You could put the full legal limit into the 14-gauge dipole if you wanted. Okay. Let's see. Using Sigma 360 for HF 10 feet, how high would help? If that's a vertical and it's a no, I don't know the antenna. If it's a vertical and doesn't need radials, getting the bottom up about 10 feet would help. You don't really need to go higher than that. If it's ground mounted on the ground, you need all the radials. If it is a radial type antenna, get it 20-25 feet in the air, and then run 2 tuned radials per band on that thing. Greetings to all. Good evening. Yeah, it's 2:02 p.m. in Great Britain, so it's 3:02 a.m., not p.m. 3:02 a.m. in Germany. Okay. Hope Sean McGrath says, I hope I'm still flying. My instructor and I got in that airplane very recently and could not for the life of us get it started. I think it was just too cold. So I've asked the FBO to get a little heating pad that goes on the bottom of the oil pan to keep that thing warm. I think that's the problem. The FBO is not certain that that's the problem. I think it is. You know, you don't have 2 magnetos go out sitting overnight. It doesn't happen. There's one thing wrong, and we just haven't figured out what it is. And I think what the one thing wrong is, it's too cold. I want to get in the air so bad. On September 29th, which is the last day I truly flew, we were getting the landings down to where there was one where my flight instructor actually noted it in my logbook. It was absolutely, totally perfect. I need to get that to where every landing is like that. So Don DeGidio says he's been type 2 since 2000. A1C is down tremendously. Congratulations. Okay. All right. Very good. Congratulations. Antenna MyQTH runoff battery and use trickle charger, and it stays around 14 volts. 14 volts is a little high for a lead acid battery. It's not bad for lithium ion, but it's a little high for lead acid because you're going to start to get just a little bit of gassing in there. The trickle charge should be around 13.3 or 13.5, but if you're not running into problems, you don't have a problem then. Domino Storm 1 asks, what exactly was the original Marconi antenna and how did it work? He had parallel wires strung very high and very long, and they were tied together in the middle, and a single wire came down to the coils and stuff that he had as the output for his spark transmitter. What he did not know was he had a capacity hat on a vertical. It was actually the riser on the antenna that was doing the work, and the capacity hat that made it work at 500 meters, which is kind of about the frequency he was using. 500 meters is 500 kilohertz. I should say 500 kilohertz, not 500 meters. Okay, so he was thinking it was working one way, it was working another. People really didn't start to truly analyze radio until Lincoln Labs was formed at MIT during World War II. And that is when people took Maxwell's equations seriously and really put some PhDs on this and really started to understand radio. And they went almost, by the mid-50s, MIT Lincoln Labs had invented the magnetic resonance imaging. I mean, that's how far they got. Now, it was the British who invented the magnetron, which is used in radar. And it's just an amazing thing. We're getting about here to show time here, so we're actually past it. Let's see. 4-band fan dipole in the attic and worked 79 DX stations past weekend. Good job. Okay. You ever been flying on a really cold, clear day? All the control surfaces work great. Yes, because there's so much air. To support anyways. In any ways, please hit the like, yes, and subscribe. I appreciate that. Can you explain the load and plate functions of a tube amplifier? Yes, I can. As a matter of fact, in a video that's coming up that involves tuning, the question asked was, what am I tuning when I'm tuning something? Am I tuning the antenna or am I tuning the radio? The short answer is you're tuning the combination of the feed line and the antenna. Okay, in such a way that it presents a 50 ohm resistive load to the radio. In other words, it's a transformer type action. But truly tuning an antenna is pairing it or adding inductance or capacitance or whatever to get it to resonance. And so I'm going to go through that because the tune and plate is part of what's called the pi network, which is how old tube radios were tuned. And I'm going to show how that relates to the current T networks that are available in tuners, or the equivalent type things there. So Paul, I will get to that in an upcoming video. Yeah, been flying. No, not every landing is perfect. Oh man, I was on Eastern Airlines. It shows you how old the story is. Eastern Airlines. Many, many years ago, and we came into LAX and just bounced and slid all over the place. And the stewardess came on and says, "Welcome to Los Angeles." She got a little laugh, and then she said, "If you enjoyed that landing, this is Eastern Flight 53. If you did not enjoy that landing, this is Delta 456. So, yeah, it was a truly horrible landing. Let's see. Yes. Harry Rundle sends $5 for channel fund, says, Keep up the great videos. Our club loves them. AC3EK. Harry, I believe it's Harry, has been using them in teaching ham classes of various types. And Greg Miron says sends $20 into channel funds and says, keep up the great perseverance, Dave. We appreciate your regular videos and positive attitude. Keep up the great work, my friend. 73 from KJ, 6ER Silicon Valley. So we've got lots of great comments here. Okay, I want to talk about something that I just learned. I don't know if there's a lesson in this or not, but I want to show you something on the web. And we're going to go to MFJ's website. And we're going to look up XIEGU. Is that how it's spelled? Okay. Here's all the Zygu stuff right here. Where did I find it? They don't have it anymore here. I was looking for something that lists all the Zygu products. Here we go. Shop. Take a look here. The G90 is for sale, 25 bucks off. This little tiny interface device is for sale. The XPA 125 is sold out. The X5105 is sold out. The G1 is sold out. And they have some kind of weird little wristwatch. And when you go into the description for that, they say they only have 5 left. I think they had 6 this morning. So I wrote an email to Deley. Now I can't remember. Richard Stubbs at MFJ, whom I know fairly well. We've met at Dayton a couple times and been on the phone with each other here and there. He's the one I deal with whenever I get something from MFJ for testing and so on. And I says, what's happening with Zygu? Looks like you're backing out of that line. And he confirmed that that is their intent. They were supposed to have, did that thing just run out of gas? I guess it just did. I've got a little light right here that we'll just give ourselves a little this way. Oh, that is too much. There we go. It's battery operated. Says what's happening with Zygu. And he noted that the problem with Zygu is they're supposed to have exclusive rights in the United States. But Zygu, Chinese company, is selling through ham radio outlet. You can get them on Amazon, get them all different places and so on. Just cutting MFJ off at the knees. And the point was that MFJ would sell and service Zygu, provide warranty service and all that kind of stuff like that. And then Zygu, whom they say has been very difficult to deal with, they were doing some things with Zygu trying to improve the products. They said, this is a great radio, but it does not meet FCC specs. You need to change this, this, and this. Okay. So, something is weird on the air. I've got a green bar. By the way, I did talk to my what is going on? I'm getting pause, play. Doesn't look like anything's happening on the screen. Tell me if it looks like. Let's go now live on your channel. I didn't want that used. Live on your channel, live. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything's happening on the screen. Tell me if kind of weird here. I'm not getting any video on the screen, but I am hearing audio. So if it's stopped for some reason, let me know in the comments. Video's frozen, no audio. You're getting audio? Okay, well, let's hope that the video comes back. I'm going to stop. Okay, started streaming again. It says excellent connection. I don't know, we're having some sort of a Google issue. Oh, there. I see it moving. Okay, great. If the audio is good, very good, very good. Okay. What's the best way to recalibrate an antenna tuner? Use a dummy load. And if you have an oscilloscope, take the peak-to-peak voltage on the thing and do the conversion to the actual watts out to find out what it really is. Where did I find the 7300? I got the 7300 direct from ICOM, actually. I was given a discount on it. I paid the employee price. Although I'm definitely not an ICOM employee. Aviate, navigate, and communicate. Yes, I've heard that many times. If we get that thing started, we're going to go to town. Okay, we are back. Here are MFG and G90. Okay. So Zygu, he's got it Zagu here. It's just interesting to note now that I think MFJ is going to back out of Zygu. Now I've got a G90 here that I was supposed to review and send back, and I've had it for quite a while, and he says don't bother sending it back, just keep it. So I will. I may still do more reviews with it. I mean, it's a really neat radio, easy to use. Okay, let's see, back. Yeah, MFJ and the Z90, and Zygu is what, X-I-E-G-U, and I'm sure that there's some way of pronouncing that is totally non-obvious from looking at the letters. This method of writing down Chinese letters, like Beijing, used to be P-E-K-I-N-G, and everybody call it Peking. But if you looked at the original pronunciation, you would look at Peking and say Beijing. So they put in a whole different series of letters for the pronunciation of the Chinese, and it's just as bad. Like the radio W-O-U-X-U-N is actually pronounced Oshing. And I had somebody argue with me that the anglicized phrase didn't have the NG end on it, but he looked at it in Chinese and it did have the equivalent of what we voice as an NG diphthong. And so that's what that was there. Okay, I want to talk about two things first, and then we're going to start into questions. First thing I'm going to hold up is this. Okay, now if you're an amateur radio operator and you believe in science, then these things are very helpful. The single most effective way to keep from catching COVID. And with all of the things that have been happening, Loretta and I keep several in each car, and yes, I walk all the way to the door and then realize I've got to get my mask, so I go all the way back to the car and get my mask. My wife says, keep one in your pocket. This is the other thing I want to show you, and this is my vaccination record. I've had the first shot, and I go back on the 24th of this month, which is coming up in 2 weeks, and get the second shot. And I would like to, if I may, I'm not going to say gotta do it, but I would say it is best practice to do that. Okay, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, I've been bugging the ARRL about something. that I wanted to announce and haven't been able to yet. They are slower than a hog on ice. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so Ranger Smith says he just bought one at DX Engineering. Yeah, I don't know, MFJ. One of these days, I want to ask Martin Jew about his quality program. Because I think what they are doing is they're making things and sending them out the door. And if they would at least sample the products, take them apart, make sure they were properly built, and so on, it would make a huge difference. But from what I understand, MFJ struggles to keep up with demand. Do you know they have 200 employees down there in Mississippi? Do I use the noise blanker feature in my 7300 much? No, not at all. I believe that it has been updated to blank out the Chinese over-the-horizon radar. I know the noise blanker on my Yaesu FTDX 3000 just absolutely zaps that Chinese radar. You push that button and you can't hear it anymore, and it doesn't affect anything. Now, he also mentions here, Lee says, the noise reduction feature works very well. Yes, it does. The noise blanker is effective and was invented for, are you ready for this? Ignition noise. It used to be in old cars, up until about, 40 years ago, the wire that went from the distributor to the spark plug was just a wire. And that wire acted as a transmitter. I mean, after all, what have you got? A spark transmitter. Okay? And you could hear it. It just interfered with every radio. So they invented the noise blanker for those pulse type noises. They're quite effective for that. But there hasn't been a car built with non-resistive distributor wire in a gazillion years. All the wires today are resistive, highly resistive, probably nichrome inside of them. And they don't make that noise anymore. And so the noise blanker is a holdover from the past, sort of an appendix or a belly button or something like that. That's a holdover from the past that's still on every radio, you gotta have it, but really does essentially nothing. And here Marshall reports he got his G90 straight from Radiodity. The G90 is a nice little radio. It is. Have you succeeded in using the 125 tuner and amp together? No, and I won't, because the, let's see, what is it, the 5125? What's the model number on that? I've got one, but it's out in the trailer, which is encircled in ice. I need to get it out because I want to do a video on mountain topping, peaks on the air. And I want to show the different kinds of equipment that people use. And that particular Zygo unit is one that is used because it has a very nice user interface. It also has internal batteries, so you don't have to carry your own batteries up the hill. It's a very nice little radio meant for portable operation, but it does barely meet FCC emission limits. And if you put an amplifier on it, it definitely does not meet FCC emission limits. Video frozen again? Mine is going here. Audio still there. Back. Video works. Okay. I ordered an MFJ power supply a month ago without paying attention and found out after I paid for it the DX Engineering was out of stock of them. Okay. You can blame COVID for the out of stock problems. MFJ is actually a manufacturer, not just a distributor. They don't buy most of their stuff in China. They make it themselves. And COVID-19 has caused real issues with that, as it has with everything else. And that will settle out. It's starting to settle out now that the vaccine is getting a little more widespread. I know in some states they've already said any adult who wants a vaccine can go get one. And then they've got the big sell to get people to go get the vaccine. And, you know, there are the people who, and believe me, you know, you think this is a new kind of thing. It's not. I remember as a kid, a child, I think when Barry Goldwater ran for the presidency in 1964, was it? He got soundly beat. But there were people to the right of him, and he was really right-wing. He lost. He got whooped. Lyndon Johnson beat him. But there were people to the right of him called the John Birch Society. And these people were thinking that if it comes from the government, it must be a lie. And, oh, the problems they created, it was just unreal. So I guess what I'm trying to say as an old guy who's going to be 70 in a couple of months, that things may seem to be getting worse, but I don't know. They're just changing nature, that's all. Okay. Bridgecom Systems sells the G90 now. I'm going to have to give them a call because they are supposed to be the exclusive distributor of the Anytone radios, and they've had a lot of problems. Bridgecom really does support them. If you buy one of the radios, the Anytone radios from Bridgecom, you can get support. They have all sorts of training videos. They will answer your questions. And they've been trying very hard to maintain that. And I have talked to people, not talked to them, but gotten emails from them, people really angry because they bought their Anytone from DX Engineering, and then they're upset because Bridgecom won't help them with their problem. Well, duh, you know, your money went to DX Engineering. If you need help, go to DX Engineering. That's why I always say if you're going to buy Anytone, get it from Bridgecom Systems so that you can get support and training. Okay, S9 noise floor in my radio. Oh, that is so frustrating. Some period cars still run around and they're noisy. I don't know that I've ever seen that. There were many, many people who, now we just had the internet go down for a second. I'm going to have to go knock on Daniel's head. Has a P. Now, part of that could be rubbed off. It could be an R, but that's not how RCA did it. RCA put an RCA in the logo. Okay. I do have a video on that. There's a video on SWR. You can look that up. I've got a few videos on it. It's the one where I gave a talk in at the Albuquerque Hamfest on that, and it's in there. And if that doesn't answer your question, send it to hamradioanswers@gmail.com, and I'll see what I can do. Yes, Barry Goldwater was K7UGA. I shook his hand once when I was an ROTC cadet. And he was a tremendous supporter of ham radio. And he and General, the guy who was in charge of SAC for so many years, the guy who was in charge of bombing Tokyo. Anyway, the two of them got together and decided that the best radio communications on SAC airplanes would be single sideband. And it was that, probably more than any single action, that made single sideband a reality. Okay, so brand new Yaesu FT991A, those are nice radios. Yeah, the John Birch, thank goodness they're not a player anymore. What type of voltage drop can be expected from a properly functioning power supply under full load? None. None. It should be 13.8 volts. It shouldn't vary at all. The reference power supply is right here. And in fact, I was looking at that yesterday. The ammeter was doing this, and the voltmeter was just staying right on 13.8 volts. So, let's see. Spare 878 battery. Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying they're perfect. Whoops. Oh, shoot. Okay. Some period cars. Let's see. We're Barry Goldwater. Voltage drawbridge come. Finally sent me my spare 878 battery. Can you please spare us your nuanced political opinions? Not everybody agrees. You know, I'm a person too. I don't think I'm getting. I just said that they were very, very, very far right. And that what we look at today as far right is nothing new. That's not a political opinion, that's an historical observation. Okay, I don't think any historian would disagree with me. Okay, not recommend getting it. Lots of taste and smell was very strange. What are you? What did Don say? Huh. Okay, what were you buying the power supply for? Many of their stuff uses standard 12-volt power supplies. The reference power supply was the Samlex 1235M, and I got it from DX Engineering. I paid full price for it. By the way, Barry Goldwater was a big, giant supporter of MARS, the military amateur radio system. It's now changed to military affiliate radio system. But he would spend his evenings, back in the day when people actually had evenings, with his huge tower pointed straight at Vietnam. And he'd spend his whole evening, practically every evening he was in Arizona, running phone patches for the troops. And the big problem back then, of course, was it was expensive to make long-distance phone calls. And so if you were going to do a phone patch for somebody and you had to dial up the number, it was expensive. It was about 50 cents a minute. He didn't care. He would make that. He would not make it a cluck call or anything like that. He would run those phone patches for the troops over there. He was a real patriot in the way he used his ham radio. It was fantastic. Yes. James Gifford is going to be 69 next month. Yeah, I'm going to be 70. I'm having trouble with that, I got to tell you. I had trouble with 50, and I'm going to have trouble with 70. You know, there's no way I can say I'm just middle-aged when I'm 70. And look at my hair, good grief. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Benjamin Otto mentioned that. Yeah, Doolittle, it wasn't Doolittle. I'll remember it. LeMay, Curtis LeMay. It was Curtis LeMay. Curtis LeMay was commander of SAC. Barry Goldwater was senator of Arizona, and a very senior senator and a very influential man. And a ham. Very much into ham radio. That was back when, if you were in high school, you'd be interested in ham radio. That was the cool thing to do if you were a nerd. The two of them were trying to solve the problem of how do you communicate with SAC bombers when they leave and go north. And the answer was, since they didn't have so many CW operators, single sideband. Because they went to AM, tried using AM, it didn't work very well. So they went to single sideband. And the fact that, and who built equipment for them, for the Air Force? A little company called Collins built that equipment. And these guys, these early ham radio guys were all friends. They all knew each other. Art Collins and Barry Goldwater and Curtis LeMay, these guys all knew each other. And Collins started making the sideband gear you needed on those B-52s and so on, B-47s. And that's where we got single sideband. It's kind of the untold story of single sideband. Okay, Ishmael Samuel from Dominica in the Caribbean says, hello, David. I'm getting the MFJ 2010 on Monday next week. Is it a reference antenna? It is. It's the HF reference antenna. Also getting a GD77 radio and a DMR hotspot. You're getting lots of stuff. Okay. At least I still have hair. My barber tells me my hair is thick around the edges and getting a little thin on top. So, 70 is the new 40. No, I've been 40. I've been 40. And I've been 69. And 69 is not the new 39, let me tell you. My mom was a Nixonette back in the 60s. Oh, I remember that, yeah. Nixon, for all the trouble he got himself into, and he was Republican. He was conservative, but not in today's sense. He was conservative in the sense of limited government, lower budgets, lower taxes, less government intervention in business and so on. That's your classic conservative. And he was a conservative and a very effective one. And he also, when you look back on it, even though he ended up resigning to avoid impeachment, he is considered one of the better presidents the United States has had. He tried to get us out of Vietnam. It didn't work. But he also opened up China. And it was pointed out at the time that probably only a Republican could have opened up China to the U.S. because if it were a Democrat, they'd say, oh, that's just a leftist socialist thing. But this is a certified, solid Republican opened up China, and it worked. And we're starting to get a tenuous relationship with China. It doesn't mean I didn't just get a box from China. That's a new radiodity. It's interesting what they claim this is. Do you remember the old Baofeng radios? The first ones that came out that everybody said were crap. They were very bad emissions and so on. Radiodity claims to have taken that radio, the original Baofeng, what was it, RD5, something like that. I can't remember right offhand because I haven't written my script. They claim they fixed it. They fixed it. That this radio is the equivalent of that radio, but it meets spurious emission requirements. It only transmits in the ham band, and things like that. So, see, Collins is with Rockwell now and has been for quite a while. And they no longer make communications equipment, but they do make a lot of aircraft avionics. Okay. I have an old Norwegian American relative who cut holes through the ice to go fishing when he was 92. That is very common up in the northern part of the country in the Great Lakes. Do I know if Johnson ever made E.F. Johnson? I think they did. What is the best HF dipole? The best HF dipole, bar none, is the one that you have, that you built yourself, that you use every day. That is the best HF dipole in the world. Any other HF dipole that's in somebody else's yard is terrible for you. The best HF dipole is yours. Put one up. They're not hard to do. I did a video on creating a 40-meter dipole from scratch, just using leftover Romex, some electric fence insulators, I did use a little SO239 instead of connecting the coax directly to it, but you can connect the coax directly to it. There. Now, we have not been through any questions from on the any of the questions that come in, so we better do that. Okay, let's see. We've got to go there and then down to ham radio answers. Seems like I take 45, well, we've taken close to an hour to get to the point where we're answering questions. I am slow. Sorry. My wife walks much faster than I do. And I keep telling her, I'm coming, I'm coming. And she says, so's Christmas. So, okay, this one is from Harry Rundle, AC3CK. Greetings, Dave. Is there a video in your library of videos discussing the proper voice compression settings for single sideband? I haven't made one specifically. In your book, your instruction book, are the instructions for properly setting compression. Now, with setting compression, without compression, but setting your mic gain properly, your average duty cycle on transmit is about 20%. With compression, proper compression, set up according to the book, the average output power is 40%. So you can about double your talk power by setting compression right. I set compression on and leave it on. It's always on. People on the air don't know what I normally sound like, so they just, it's a voice on the air. Okay, I found my ability to be acknowledged by the stations I called was challenging. Many did not even respond. Yeah, that's normal. Though I was running 90 watts, run it up to 100. Good grief, use it all. Sufficient for a 20-meter overseas contact, but you were in the middle of a contest. So you're fighting. My compression setting was at 8. Mic setting was at 50. 50 is about right. Go through the book and what the book says on setting compression, because it is real easy to over compress. Now, and it's really hard to understand when you do that like that. Okay. Reduced voice compression to 4, and lo and behold, I started to make consistent KE0OGs. Okay, so you've answered your question. You had too much compression in there, which in a way is a little surprising because the radio has got an automatic limiter, an ALC, automatic level control in there. I just did a video about that that turned out to be really popular. I'm going to do another one on AGC. Okay. But you can way over compress. So you want to be careful with that. Also, I believe buried in there are some tone controls on the transmit. Reduce your bass a little bit so that more of the power goes to the treble, because it's the treble that gets through, not the bass. Okay, would you mind commenting on this topic regarding voice compression and what you found to be a good setting? Well, the setting is going to vary on the microphone and the operator. And if you're an operator who uses his inside voice and holds the mic, holds it way down here, versus somebody who uses their outdoor voice when it's way up here, you'll have a problem. So go through the instructions, and let's just find them. Compression. Compression. Mic gain microphone. Well, I don't see it. Microphone gain adjusting. Up down here. Okay. I'll look it up and I'll put it in the video. Okay. So, Harry, I'm going to print this video so that I remember to do that. And I'm running a little bit behind. As I'm getting used to this new diet with the diabetic thing, I'm running into some sugar level problems, so pardon me if I sometimes take a while to get to something. This is from EdKitty6SW. One of my big disappointments using the IC7300, the reference station, is ICOM's use of relays for switching between transmit and receive while using QSK and CW. I've owned Ten-Tech, Elecraft, and some QRP rigs that don't use relays. I've had them with and without. QSK is a pleasure to use, especially during a contest. Why is ICOM insisting on using relays instead of pin diodes for switching outputs? Relay noise is really loud and distracting. And let me show you the solution for that right here. Headset. It is much easier to hear things on the air with a proper headset. Okay, this is the reference professional quality headset, but it's only about $100. And there are a lot of headsets for more that aren't as good. The reason for the headset is because then you don't have the ambient noise competing for brain cells as the signal comes in. Okay, so that is what I would suggest doing. Relays, not relays, some do, some don't. You know, you can do full break-in with the rig, and that means the relays are switching really fast. I prefer full break-in, but they've got partial break-in, I think, is the default setting in there. So, yeah, I think even my Yaesu did it. Certainly the old Yaesu does it. My little Yaesu FT747 didn't, and it had extremely fast turnaround from receive to transmit and vice versa. And so I could use it on the MTOR. MTOR has very strict standards on that. So does PACTOR, but they're not as bad. And PSK31 doesn't have any issues with that sort of thing. Okay, so Ed, there you go. This is from Ken Miller K8HTL. How do you measure ground loss resistance in your vertical antenna systems to tell when you have added enough ground radials and no further benefit would be gained by adding more? The magic, no, go ahead and drive a ground rod at the where you've got your vertical there. Do you measure ground rod? The point of the radials is to make up for the fact that your ground is no good. It's not salt water. Even pouring salt out there doesn't help. Now, if you could somehow create a pond and fill it with salt water and put your antenna out there in the middle of it, all you'd need would be a little wire down into that salt water. And you'd have the perfect radial system. But such doesn't exist in reality. So you put out, you know, start with 15 radials. They don't have to be long, 20 feet, 25 feet. The length doesn't matter terribly. In fact, if you have a choice of 5 20-foot radials or 4 25-foot radials, go with the 5 20-foot radials. But if you've got enough wire, you can make 30-foot radials around the thing, do it. You can go down to Home Depot and in the electrical wiring section, find not Romex, but single THHN wire. And it comes in a variety of colors. I suggest black, but you can use anything. You can use any color. I suggest insulated radials, and they don't have to all be of the same length. Just put them out there. And I remember once I had about 15 radials on my butternut, and I took down my full wavelength 80-meter loop, cut it up into more radials, and put it out on the system. Really improved. The number of radials improves it, but there is a point of diminishing returns. And I did a video on radials recently, and if you go back to that, you'll see 25 to 30 radials, you're at the point of diminishing returns. You're not going to get any more by putting out more radials. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, this next one is from Barry. WE7BY. Let's see. The question comes as a result of a neighbor who is unhappy with my installation of a high-gain AV680. AV680s are big antennas. They're built on a little piece of tower. They're tall. Mounted on a post 12 to 15 feet high off the ground. What are you doing for, 680. 680. The 680 is an antenna that doesn't have radials. It does have a little counterpoise at the bottom, but it doesn't have radials. And a post 12 to 15 feet high is fine. As you know, this makes the entire structure very high, yeah. And even I have to admit that it interferes with their incredible view of the Santa Barbara Bay. So what would happen if I took this high-gain RV680 and mounted it close to the ground, and instead of using counterpoise whips supplied with the antenna, I used instead actual ground wire radials? You don't need radials with that antenna. That antenna is electrically a half wave oriented vertically. It's end-fed half wave oriented vertically. So radials aren't going to help you. Go ahead and mount it on the ground and leave the radials there, and that might really help. Or, I'm sorry, leave the existing whips, as you call them, there. Okay. Yeah, you don't have to do that. If you want to ground mount a regular antenna, the AV, like the high gain 14 AVQ, something like that, you would want to put lots of radials out there. Again, don't be like an AM broadcast antenna. The AM broadcast people are required to build a radio field with a certain percentage of ground coverage, and it's measured. It's very expensive. It's extraordinarily expensive. Have you ever noticed that AM broadcast antennas, those towers, are always out in great big fields? That's because that entire field has got copper wire buried underneath it. I'm going to tell you a story from the Air Force. One of my maintenance guys came in and says, "Sir, we've got a grounding problem with the height finder." So I went out with him, and he picked up the ground where the ground lug went down to what, when the place had been built, they'd put a ground mesh under the entire site. And this thing went down and connected to it. And he just reached over there and picked the thing up. And it was about this much of it, and the rest was corroded. I mean, we were about 100 feet from seawater. And I says, "How does the radar work?" He says, "Fine." He says, "Well, just stick it back in the ground." So, anyway, the antenna comes with its own balun, and that's probably in it, yes. It's more than 8 to 1. And putting 500 to 900 watts into this thing after it's up and tuned, assuming that it could even be tuned, directed into this antenna, I'm not sure that the AV680 takes that much power. Are you sure? You better look at the specs for it. I would recommend that mounting it on the ground is not optimum for that antenna. It's not optimum. I would not re-engineer the antenna. No, because it won't work when you do that. You'll have a very hard time and get very frustrated with it. Just mount it on the ground. That'll take 10 to 20 feet out of it. Now, if you're on the edge of a hill, view the Santa Barbara Bay. Somehow I'm imagining you're on a hill. You could move it down the hill and still leave it up a little bit, and you'd be fine. But I wouldn't try to re-engineer that antenna, Barry. I think you would really run into issues. Okay, this next one is KE0OG IDM. Doesn't give a name. Mr. Casler, first would like to thank you for your in-depth explanation of ham radio theory. I try. Thank you. I'm interested in the correct lengths for the feed lines used with half-wave dipoles antennas for defined frequency. Is it important to match the feed line length to the frequency as it is the antenna length? No, it is not. If your antenna is reasonably tuned, in other words, with an SWR under about 2 to 1, put any length of coax on it. Now that coax will act as a transformer. It will change the reactive and resistive parts both, mostly reactive, and that is what your tuner deals with. Okay. Now, if you want what hits your tuner to be exactly the same thing that's at the antenna, make that antenna an electrical half wavelength long. The problem is that once you change frequency even by 1 hertz, it's no longer a true electrical half wavelength antenna. It's turning into a transformer. So there's no point in bothering with that. Just put whatever in that you need. Okay, no, you just need enough coax to get back to your antenna tuner. Feed line length is not important. Yeah, you can use 299,792,458 meters per second for the speed of light if you want. That makes for a double precision arithmetic. And given the difference in there, the most significant difference in there is that 7. And you're down in the 4th digit. Now, I challenge you to cut an antenna and put it up to 66.25 feet. You can't do it. You're going to be, a quarter inch, you know. You don't need to go that precise. Just use 300 meters per second. On that, by the way, 299,792,458 meters per second is not the measured speed of light. It is, by definition, the speed of light. And when we say by definition, we're going, oh my goodness, but light's going to travel what light's going to travel. Yes, the answer is that actually that defines the length of the meter. The meter is 1 over 299,792,458 of the distance traveled by light in a vacuum in 1 second. I dare you to go measure that out in space. Okay. Oh, he wants his call sign and name anonymous. Guys, put that up front if that's what you want, because the first thing I see is your call sign. Sorry. But yeah, don't worry about the length of the feed line. You're going to be fine. Now, a lot of feed line, like the reference feed line. The reference feed line is one of the things I don't have actually installed in the reference station because it's in a plastic bag in the closet. But it has connectors already on it. There are a lot of people who prefer not to deal with connectors. So they just purchase feed line with connectors already on both ends, which is perfectly fine. And that's what I set up for the reference station. But just remember this. If something is just outside your window, you're talking at least 50 feet of coax. Because the coax doesn't go from here to there. It goes down to the floor and out through a hole and under the house and out underneath and over and around to where your ground is, and then it's got to come along the ground and then go up to your antenna, and it's going to be significant longer. If you doubt that, whenever you're going to order coax or something, take a piece of rope and run the piece of rope exactly as you would run the coax, leaving plenty of extra room behind your rig so you can pull your rig out and things like that. You'll measure the rope and you will be amazed at how long it is. It's truly amazing. Okay, so sorry about the call sign there. Tell me up front if you notice. Please keep my question anonymous. Okay, let's do one more real quick. Okay, this is from Sean Nocita, KJ7MKX. Any chance you could do a review of the newer loop antennas like the box fan from MFJ? Can't find any reviews or video on them yet. Been waiting for a few months. Well, Sean, the box fan is not a new antenna. It's a very old one. It's a very old design that they have. I would go with the newer one that's just the circle. Okay. Now the box fan is good for portable work. The problem with the box fan is that it's 10 square feet of wind resistance. Okay. Whereas the circular one is a fraction of a square foot. So you're only going to be able to use the box fan portable. You can put it up on your chair, but make sure you somehow tie it down so it doesn't fall over on you in the wind, which it can do very, very easily. I would recommend getting the round one, but if you like the box fan, you certainly can. One of the nice things about the box fans, if you put it outside and you put it somewhere, you can just say, oh, that's just something waiting to go in the trash or something like that. I don't know. Nobody can figure out what it is by looking at it. I'll have to talk to MFJ and see if I can get one for review. So there you go. Let me put that into saved, and let's go back to live streaming since it is about time for us to quit. Let's see. Looks like there's been quite a few conversations going on. Meter stick, stop watching a spaceship. I'll give it a go. Yeah. You need warp drive to do that. I don't know if you've been reading, there's been some scientists recently saying that they think there's a way they could actually make warp drive work. It's amazing how much science fiction precedes and predicts science fact. You know, the inventor of the geostationary satellite was Arthur C. Clarke, the great science fiction writer. He was the first to publish the idea of the geostationary satellite. Engineers calculate lengths to 4 decimal places, mark it with a piece of chalk, and cut it with an axe. Yes, that's true. Okay, air isn't a vacuum. No, it's not. You've got to get up into space to do that. But the speed of light in air is pretty well established. And it's a function of everything you can imagine: pressure, temperature, humidity, so on and so forth. Okay, today DX Engineering had a guy that make an automatic antenna relay box that hooks to your rig, so when you shut off your rig, it shorts your antenna to ground. Oh, fine, good. Just got an IC7300. Is it worth printing the expanded manual on the CD? That's this. The answer is yes. I would recommend you print it in color and on both sides of the paper. Okay. And take it down to Office Depot and have it spiral bound with a plastic cover, clear plastic cover on the top, and any other kind of black, whatever, plastic cover on the back for sturdiness, because you are going to use the living daylights out of this thing. And yes, you want the full manual. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, thank you very much for adding $10 to the channel funds. And Killer Spud mentioned it's named the Clark Belt for a reason. Yes, it is. Absolutely. You're grounding for 3 things: regular AC safety, RF, and lightning. It isn't simple, but it's doable. FT8 power, keep it down. Hedy Lamarr plus one other person invented a spread spectrum technique. It was frequency hopping. The technique is used today more often than direct spread spectrum. The frequency spreading is, and she is widely credited with the invention of spread spectrum. Jules Verne envisioned a lot of the things we use today in his novels, yes. William Myers, K8HTL, has put $5 into channel funds. Thanks, Dave. Hope you have time to answer my feedline question. My wife and I disagree about the best way to run it. Well, that's simple. Do it the way your wife wants it. Let's see. We have to... yeah. Wondering, how do you program the GD77? Getting it on Saturday. I think you can do it with Chirp. No, 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 no. The GD77 is DMR. So you're going to have to get the programming software from Radioddity. However, the so-called red cable, which I did a video about, should work with the GD77. And John Ward is a ham operator at the 11th grade level, WN3YCD. Congratulations, John. Really dig in and enjoy the hobby and ignore the fact that there's an awful lot of old men around who'd like to tell you how it ought to be done. You figure that out yourself. You'll be just fine. Then someday you'll be an old man and you can have a video channel and tell other people there. Okay, download the latest manual from the website before you print it. I agree. Dave, did you mention the idea that headset I showed? Yes, this is a Sony professional dynamic stereo headphones, MDR, Mike Delta Romeo 7506. Note that they sell a 75010 for more money. You don't need that. The 7506 is famous in the music community for giving the most accurate presentation of a recording. And that's what you want with your radio. You don't want somebody to make it sound really bassy or something like that. You want accuracy. And that's what it'll give you. Okay, download the list. Don't forget to remind them about the time change next week. That's right. The evil government has gotten us again by changing our time. I wish we had daylight savings time all year. I really do. They keep talking about it and they keep never doing it. But that's this Saturday, and we spring forward. So we move ahead an hour, which means we lose an hour because we moved ahead. It's at 2 a.m. At 2 a.m., get up and change your clock so that it says 3 a.m. because you just lost that hour. That hour does not legally exist. Okay, you get it back in the fall when you get 2 a.m.s. Okay, very good. So I'm going to say, if you don't have a lot of stuff in your calendar, advance your clocks tonight. Come Sunday morning, you'll be acclimated. Oh, golly. Any advice on tools, especially specialty tools? Well, we could go to manufacturer's loop that has the P in it. Nobody came back with an answer to that. Okay. Yeah, the Russians had problems with daylight savings time in Siberia. They'd change every year, you know, because one year everybody would go to school in the dark. That'd create problems. So they'd change so they could go to school in daylight, and then they'd go home in the dark. So did you go home in the dark or did you go to school in the dark? It was rough. Okay, very good. Well, 73 to everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with you this Thursday evening. I hope you have a lot of fun. Be sure to check out the videos. I've been putting them up. I've backed off from the everyday video to trying to get some more complete videos with charts and stuff. The next big one with charts and stuff will be the one about automatic gain control. There's a lot of secret folklore, or not secret folklore, but secret knowledge going with automatic gain control, just like there is with ALC. So we'll have a lot of fun, and so I will say to you, 73.